Quest to Succeed. Chapter 24. Naresh nonetheless continued to argue and attempted to convince Jay that he would not be able to buy a house in London. You would not be able to obtain a mortgage because you have not lived in the UK long enough to qualify for a house loan. If you returned to India, you would not obtain a job because of high unemployment. He had all the negativities. Jay decided not to argue with him because he would not discern or grasp what was he trying to communicate. Within a few days of this episode, Jay discovered that Nakul had not told him that his wife and children had received their passport from the Indian government 4.5 months earlier. He had provided this information to his friend Naresh, who did not apprise Jay about their passport. Jay found it a strange way of communication because Nakul did not illuminate of the receipt of his wife's passport, whereas he communicated to his friend who kept the message secret and still attempted to obtain money for his friend in London. Nakul wanted Jay to send some more money as if his family was a hostage. Jay had already sent enough money for their airfare and necessary purchases. Naresh wanted money from Jay so he could coerce him and force him to continue to live as a single person in England. His wife and children would be living in India, a divided family. Jay nevertheless worked out the conspiracy by a person who could never think positive or for the welfare of others. He had, however, been talking to experienced and clever people who had advised him to be careful about parting with the resources. He, therefore, could not be easily persuaded or convinced that all was in his favor, whatever Nakul and Naresh were plotting. In a sense, information about Jay's family's passport was edited and scrutinized by keeping him in dark and to exploit the situation. Nakul failed to inform Jay when he was the first person to be reported to because it affected him and his wife and children. Naresh did not tell him. Even though Nakul had written to him, Nakul continued to behave as if it did not matter and it was not of any significance. Later, Naresh laughed about this incident and said to Jay that he was aware of his family's passport as soon as it was delivered at Nakul's home in New Delhi, where Jay's wife with children was living at that time. Nakul did not write a separate letter to Jay, perhaps to save money on postage. The same thing happened when his family came to London, many months after their passport had been received from the Indian government. Nakul informed Naresh as soon as their flight was booked that Jay's family was coming to London. Jay was not informed of the day or time they would arrive at the London airport. He, however, sent him a telegram a day before their arrival. Nakul charged 10 rupees for the telegram, but Jay's thousands of rupees were not considered and never returned to him. Jay found Nakul money-minded, mentally sick, and morally bankrupt. Naresh also attempted to create a friction between Jay and his brother Nakul. He tried to persuade Jay to give an ultimatum to his brother that his family should be sent to the United Kingdom by a certain date. At the same time, he wrote to Nakul that he should not send Jay's family to join him. If his family arrived in England, he would not help him, Nakul, financially in the future. Jay was very forgiving and did not take any action against any of them. He found Naresh an angel of darkness and an apostle of doom. On Jay's refusal to help his friend at his house in southeast London, he felt humiliated and insulted. His wife told Reena that Jay had insulted him in front of his friend. He should retract. Jay had done nothing wrong. There was no question of any apologies. Jay looked at this episode and compared with the story of a monkey and the crocodile. Naresh was smooth when he told him that he, Jay, had also been invited by his friend for lunch. After lunch, however, he asked Jay to give all his savings to his friend. In this example, Naresh behaved just as the crocodile had behaved in the story, but Jay was cautious. He refused to part with his money to anyone. It was his money, and he had plans to use it for his family when they arrive in the United Kingdom. Nakul had his own plans. He encouraged Jay to emigrate to England, but asked him to send his earnings to him. What shocked Jay was that when his family received their passport in November, he did not inform him that his wife and children were ready to come to Britain. He wrote to his friend Naresh about it. who did not inform Jay. Naresh also wanted Jay to continue to send his money to Nakul. He revealed that the whole purpose of you being encouraged to come to London was that he and his friend Nakul would continue to take money of you. He questioned, Jay, when you were in India, why did you send your earning to your parents? You should have forwarded that money to Nakul, who had many children. Your money would have convenienced him in bringing up his youngsters. Jay started to examine Naresh's character and personality again. He attempted to make a psychological analysis of his behavior. He was not a rich man, yet pretended to be rich, and would readily offer financial assistance to his friends and colleagues. He, however, never transmitted his own money to anyone at any time. He was exploitative and Machiavellian. He wanted to exhibit that he could control and direct others by intimidating them into submission. Jay perceived that Naresh might have a personality disorder, which could have been caused by an identity crisis. He was an Indian man living in Britain, where he had faced prejudice and discrimination. He, however, thought that he was an Italian rather than an Indian man. He could also be antisocial, because such people behave impulsively, without forethought and without considering the consequences. They are often remorseful not for their wrongful act, but for not achieving success with their plan. Antisocial people tend to be easily irritated and respond to even a minor frustration. They could come across as self-assured and self-confident. They often create a good impression on a new contact, only to take advantage of their recently developed friendship. Jay observed that these characteristics existed in Naresh, who wanted to impress others of his greatness and power. He thought that he had a strong personality and could influence people surrounding him. He, however, had double personality with narcissistic disorder. It was not easy to deal with such a person because they tend to fantasize to behave normally. The narcissistic personality disorder has a pattern of self-centered and arrogant thinking. They lack empathy and consideration for other people. They make excessive demand for admiration. They tend to be manipulative and patronizing. Jay did not let Naresh know about his opinion of him and continued to treat him as his brother's friend, even though he had no regard for him. Naresh did really ask Jay to praise him in front of his friends who lived in the same house where he lived. They knew him personally. Jay did not acclaim or applaud him as he desired. Naresh expected regular approbation and admiration from others. In Jay's opinion, he lived in an illusion of paradise. He was conscious of his self-esteem and self-respect, which was fragile. Jay found Naresh a control freak who wanted to treat him as a satellite, who should orbit around him, listen to him and function as directed by him. He, Jay, should not take his own decisions or do anything by himself. Jay thought that he, Naresh, lacked insight into the feelings and needs of other people. Such a person daydreams about prosperity, victory, influence, and admiration. He also exhibited a feeling of entitlement. Such people believe that they should receive special privilege and respect without doing anything positive or constructive. A sense of superiority pervades in them. They perceive their success more than that of the persons who work to attain it. They go into an episode of humiliation if others ignore them or criticize them. A sense of arrogance pervades in such folks. Naresh forgot that he himself undervalued the work and accomplishments of others. He was a manual worker. Many of his other acquaintances were in middle-class white-collar jobs. Jay endured that Naresh's personality might be the result of his cultural background. He came from a village farming family who could not adjust in an advanced industrialized society in Britain. He did not realize that he was a new immigrant and should have observed the socio-economic environment of his adopted country. He should have attempted to visualize and consider the new situations rather than carrying the old baggage. If he had changed his habits, he could have become acculturated in the new nation. Naresh, however, used to hide his feelings of envy and jealousy. He used to get angry over the success of others, especially when they had good jobs or bought their own house in England. In course of time, Jay forgot all about Naresh, but realized that once he had spoken to Puneet about him and his actions, he should reveal it to his wife Reena. On hearing the story, Reena said, "Rightly, we broke all connections with that criminal-minded man. We should not waste our time and energy on such a person, because it would be good to leave them and not to fight with such people." Nakul was partly responsible for creating a misunderstanding about Jay in Naresh's mind. The former had told the latter that Jay did not care about money, though he worked hard to earn it. When Jay lived in Delhi, he paid all his salary and tuition fee to Nakul. He also easily parted with his pocket money of 4 annas weekly as a child when he initially went to study at secondary school in the city near his village. They both, however, did not realize that Jay had a strong dynamism and walked out of his village primary school at the age of 9. Never saw the school or the teacher again. Once he left Nakul's house in order to live in a rented accommodation. He never lived or stayed with him again, though Nakul insisted that he and his family should move back with him before departing to London. Jay did not believe in clashes or hurting others. He wanted to comfort people and put them at ease. Some people were, however, determined to ignore all advice and sensitivity. They felt that they were right when their welfare was contrary to their belief. Jay was not a rich man, yet he never displayed his poverty or made an exhibition of his problems. He did not show off either. Still, people expected him to support them financially and in many other ways. Naresh was not the only person who had asked Jay for money whenever he visited him. His friend Nahar had similar habits. He did not ask for money directly. Naresh borrowed money for him of Jay. It was Naresh's habit to promise assistance to his friends just to show off. Nahar would, however, insist that Jay went out with him and pay his bus fare. Often he requested him to purchase an ice cream for him. Another individual who took advantage of Jay's simplicity was Prashant. He requested him to accompany him to the registry to file a divorce petition. Jay had never seen his wife, yet he went along with him to the registry for moral support. A few months later, Prashant approached him again and said that he wanted to get married to his ex-wife and could he come to the registry. Jay saw something fishy in it. He refused to oblige. He even did not give Prashant his new address when they moved to live in a new locality. He did not want to see him again.